Hi, I'm Skip Nipper. Welcome to my podcast where I tell you about Nashville's great baseball history and traditions.
Shot to right, a one-hop liner.
Certainly about its past, especially about Tom Wilson Park, Herschel Greer Stadium, Sulphur Dell, but also a little bit about its present and future, too.
Yes, he can. It makes the waist-high catch.
And I introduce you to players, coaches, and other fans and their love for everything baseball.
The high fly ball down the right field corner, going way back, hits a lead-off home run.
I'm just grateful that I can introduce to those who are listening a friend named Tony Rankin. Now, Tony and I have known each other a few years, not too awfully long, but we learned about each other through the Nashville Old Timers Baseball Association. Tony grew up playing baseball, Dixie Youth Baseball at Parkwood in East Nashville and in Antioch. Played baseball and graduated with board member Tommy Bolton at Antioch High School. Tommy played for the Boston Red Sox and had a pretty good career. Tony's love of the game, and this is what I admire about him, continues to bring him great memories. And he's a clinical therapist, a speaker, and an author. He serves as minister of pastoral care at Nashville First Baptist Church. He is married to his wife, Amber, and together they have 3 children, a daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren. He is the recently installed president of the Nashville Old Timers Baseball Association, which has been around since 1938. And most recently, the organization held its 86th annual banquet, and it featured Ken Griffey Sr. We always have to put that senior on there as the featured guest. But most importantly, maybe not most importantly, but high on the list, he is a collector of baseballs, autographed baseballs, and other memorabilia. And I'm sure he will tell how he came about being a collector and how he uses it to fulfill dreams of others. So, Tony, welcome to Skip's Corner, Nashville baseball history. Hope you're doing okay.
Man, it's great to be here to talk about baseball.
Yeah, it's a worthy subject, isn't it? Tell me about your earliest recollection of baseball, maybe the first time you held a baseball in your hand.
Well, I think the first shot was as a 10-year-old at Parkwood, and I'd always liked to watch baseball on TV. My family didn't have any money growing up, and my first experience with baseball was going with a friend on his summer vacation and seeing the Reds play the Expos and the Cardinals play the Braves in 1971.
That's that undoubtedly gave you the impetus to continue on to learn and love about baseball. But you played baseball at Parkwood, I mentioned earlier. Did you also play at Una?
No, I played at Parkwood, and I played at the volunteer league that met over there off Cambridge Road, close to Antioch High School.
Yeah.
Now, I coached at Una quite a bit, hundreds of games with my 2 boys, yes.
Gotcha. Okay. And you went to Antioch High School. Did you play baseball in Antioch?
No, I did not. I quit playing in middle school because my parents got tired of taking me to practice, quite honestly. But I never missed a game in Antioch. I was always in attendance.
Yeah. But you developed some friendships there at Antioch that are baseball friends, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Tom Bolton and I, we played against each other in middle school. Tom and I were friends at Antioch High School. Of course, he was part of the 79 state championship in Chattanooga that still holds memories for a lot of us who went to Antioch.
And you went to Belmont College.
Right. At Belmont, I roomed with some baseball players, and I did a little bit of broadcasting for, the Bruins back in the days of Dave Whitten coaching there when the baseball stadium was on campus. So I remained faithful to baseball throughout college and even attended quite a few Sounds games while I was a college student there in Nashville.
Yeah, but you got to sit in the dugout at Belmont and maybe even the Sounds ballpark.
Oh, yeah, the Sounds. I had a bat boy who was in my youth group that I took to quite a few games because his parents both worked the third shift. And I said, one day, can you get me to sit in the dugout? And one year in particular, I think it was 81, I was in the dugout and sitting right next to him was Don Mattingly. Didn't know what Don Mattingly was going to be, but yeah, I sat right there with him and a bunch of other Sounds who made it Willie McGee and Vince Coleman. And at one point, I got to meet Steve Balboni and just some players who played for the Sounds that have gone on to have great careers.
You get to meet those guys.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in fact, the game that I sat next to Don Mattingly on the bench when I was leaving and walking out to the parking lot, there were sheets of Arby's baseball cards of Sounds and people were just walking on them like they were trash. And if I had saved 100 of those Don Mattingly Arby's baseball cards, uh, who knows what I might be worth these days? But because I went to buy one a while back, and I couldn't believe how expensive it were. Just a Sounds card from Arby's. But yeah, that was quite a night.
Yeah, but you served in a different capacity for the Sounds one season when they were a Pirates farm club. I
Yeah,
think.
for 2 years I was their clinical therapist. So any pirate that was on the Sounds or any pirate that was coming through town in the Pirates organization, if they needed a session or 2 sessions with some trauma or with some rehab stuff or just family issues, I was their therapist for 2 years.
And you've continued that through that's your work, that's your business now, or not your business, but
Right.
that's your vocation, I suppose I should say. And that's a worthy subject within itself.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about it when I was doing the work for the Pirates through the Sounds organization, they said, there's no money involved. I said, that's fine if you could just get me a few pieces of memorabilia. And then I made a comment about my being a fan of the Reds. And that conversation went south pretty quickly, but it turned around when I helped realize I wasn't trying to make enemies. I was just trying to say I'm a Reds fan. That elicited a conversation about Willie Stargell and a bunch of the other players who played for the Reds back in the 70s.
And you've just been hooked, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, from collecting stuff to attending fantasy camp for the Reds in 2020 to just anything involving baseball, I am definitely, as you call it, hooked.
Well, I didn't know about fantasy camp with the Reds. Tell about that.
Well, here's the deal. And the Reds are not the only team that does fantasy camp, but that's who I'm interested in. So I went out to Arizona to the Reds training facilities in January before spring training. And they take 144 guys. You go out there, you audition, you try out. They try to make the teams pretty even. There's some question about whether or not some guys, kind of stack the league, but you play doubleheaders. You're there for 8 days. You play doubleheaders. You stay where the Reds stay in training camp. You eat where the Reds eat during training camp. The Reds chefs are there. The Reds training staff's there. Everything about spring training was there for us guys. So you play 2 games a day. You eat, you drink, you have fun together. You're coached by former Reds players. My manager for the 8 days I was there was Raleigh Eastwick. So you're there with Reds players. In the afternoon and night, you hang out together. You decide who you want to take out to eat that night. I remember one night I asked Glenn Bragg if he wanted to eat supper, and he said, "Well, I don't eat meat, but I'll eat a burger with you." We had a burger, and he said, "What do you remember about my career?" I said, "I remember the time you swung the bat and broke it on your back." And he said, "Where were you sitting?" I told him, and he said, "You mean this video?" And he pulls up the video on his phone.
Oh my!
And he shows me lived it minute by minute, second by second. So the weekend itself was complete fantasy. I mean, one day I took 30-minute batting practice by Ron Dibble.
Oh gosh!
And the next day I took a batting practice by Joe Oliver.
No,
it's just me and you in the cage, me and him in the cage, nothing but just fun.
Oh wow!
And then one day Jack Armstrong came there. He said, let me show you a few things about your swing. I said, "Listen, dude, I'm 58 years old. I'm never going to play for the Reds. I'm comfortable with my swing." And I reminded him, when you were a Reds player, you weren't the best hitter yourself. So be careful with what you're trying to show me.
That's
So
funny.
it was that kind of conversation all week long. At one point, we had a rule of no smoking at fantasy camp. But Ron Oster, he got a cigar going 24/7. And one day I sat on the back of the golf cart with him and said, "Ron, how do you get away with this?" He said, "What are they going to tell me to go home?" I said, "Well, probably not, because you're the jokester up here." And he said, "Do you want a cigar?" I said, "Well, I don't smoke cigars, but yeah, I want one." And he took me to his locker and he pulled one out. I've still got it sitting on my
I know.
one of my trophies in my house.
Never let it up though, right?
Oh yeah.
That's that's I think that's impressive because that's not free. So the investment that you made into that, you probably had to save a few bucks along the way to be able to go there. That's impressive. Would you go back and do that again?
I don't know that I would, because it was such a meaningful experience the first time. And I've dumped a whole lot of money before on other things not quite as fun,
Yeah.
but it did cost a little bit of money. But I would tell you, when I came back all my friends who looked at my pictures said, "Man, I've never seen you look so happy."
Oh, I bet.
Because I was completely free. I had I had a friend who, when I got back, he'd make some baseball cards for me. Had them printed up. And as a part of the fantasy camp, they make some baseball cards of you. For the most part, you get to play the positions that you grew up playing.
Yeah.
So at fantasy camp, I played a little bit of third base, but mainly I played right field and catcher.
Right.
And it's just a complete blast.
Did they keep up with your stats?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think I batted about 287 for the week.
That's not bad. That's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad considering the first time I got a hit, I took off running and I did a face plant between home and first. And my manager ran over and said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yeah." My head said I could run 55 miles an hour, and my body said you could only go about 18. And so there was a lot of excitement. Last day of the camp, we were going to the awards banquet, and an older man named Jugs, he was walking across the field, and he put his arm around me. He goes, "Have I met you before?" And I said, "No, we've been here this week, but I've never met you before." He goes, "It seemed like I've met you before." I said, "Well, yeah, today in the bottom of the seventh, you threw a hanging curveball, and I thought you were going to hit me in the head, and I bailed out, and it broke in for a strike." He goes, "Oh yeah, that was you." So I got struck out by an 83-year-old man throwing a curveball. That sent me spinning.
Oh. Well, I was laughing at when you said the face plant. I'm sorry to have laughed, but you grinned about it. So anyway,
I took a picture of my pants. I've still got the places on my knees where I landed so hard.
Yeah. Over the past few years, we've had some Cincinnati Reds players like Ken Griffey Sr. Sonny Gray ended up becoming a Red just a few days after he spoke to us. At the time, he was playing for the Yankees. How much fun is that to be with those players that you've adored for so long?
Well, it's particularly when they tell stories.
Yeah.
It's like I've been there before. Like I've known this guy. I mean, literally, like Senior. I mean, I've known of him for 50 years.
Correct.
And when you know somebody that long, it's almost like you are friends.
Sure.
I got a picture taken with Senior after the banquet when he was autographing a baseball for me, and I showed it to my friends. It's like, man, it looks like you're our best friends. Yeah. And I couldn't, I've never sat with him, had breakfast with him, but when somebody becomes a part of your world, your fantasy world as a child, you just don't ever forget those things.
One of the challenges that you'll have going forward and that you participated in the last few years was securing a banquet speaker. And I don't think we've ever been failed. We had one a couple of years ago that got a little raunchy with some of his descriptions of what went on in the locker room. But other than that, very personable, I think, these guys. I recently met Friday night, as a matter of fact, met Doc Gooden, and he was very personable. He also spoke very freely about his life and the things that he did. One of the things he did was sign with the Cleveland Indians for 2 years, and the Yankees, who he had been with, went to the World Series, won 2 championships. And he said, by me signing with the Indians, I made that decision and I lost out on 2 World Series. But other than that, he talked about some of the things that he'd been confronted with, which is something that you do on a regular basis, right? You deal with people. And,
right.
and I guess I'm supposing that you did that also when you were with the Sounds, and at Belmont, maybe doing some of that counseling too, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how did you get involved in that?
Well, when I went to Belmont, I actually had sent my transcript to Liberty. I thought I was going to do music. I had a couple music scholarships. I had 2 tuba scholarships.
Cool.
And my transcript wound up at Belmont. And the lady who was in charge of psychology called me and said, "Listen, Tony, not really sure why your transcript wound up here, but you actually look like more of a counseling type person as opposed to a musician." And she said, "We've got 1 psychology scholarship left. And if you want to interview for it tomorrow, I can see it in my office at 10 o'clock. I went. She called me that night, said, "Hey, if you want to come to Belmont on full scholarship, you can." So I made a pretty drastic shift based on my transcript being sent to the wrong place. And I got involved with counseling and psychology, and I've been with it ever since.
Well, my cap's off to you for that. You're a blessing to people, and I think that's just terrific. Not only in your vocation, but also with the church work that you do First Baptist of Nashville, correct?
Correct. In fact, just this morning, I found a baseball last week from the Greenville Braves,
Wow.
affiliated with the Braves, and was looking at the ball to discovered that was the year that Bruce Benedict was their manager.
Yeah.
Got a friend who works at Belmont, and I said, I got this ball when Bruce Benedict was a AAA affiliate for the Braves, and I said, here's the trick. I'm going to give it to you. And on that ball, there are 10 players that probably wound up playing professional baseball, but they were AAA at the time, coached by Bruce Benedict. And in the middle of the ball has got Bobby Cox's signature. I did some research this weekend and found out that sometimes Bobby would go to his farm teams, and if there was a ball floating around the dugout that they were signing, he would sign it himself. I delivered that baseball this morning after church was over.
That's great. But well, tell a little bit about that, because you mentioned that the other night. It wasn't your acceptance speech. Well, maybe it was at the Old Timers board meeting when you were installed as the president. You served 2 years as vice president. You've been a valued member of the Old Timers, and you've taken a real interest, and you have some thoughts about things that you might want to change, or at least some revisions that you might want to make. But talk a little bit about some of the things that you talked about to us about collecting balls and then giving them away. How does that work?
Okay. Well, a couple of things. It all started when I used to coach my boys, and before I even coached my boys at UNA, they were always looking for players to play up. Like when a team was short a player, and what they would always do for that player who played up, it was kind of a gift. They would all get a team ball, and all the kids would sign it, and they would give it to the kid. And my boys used to hang on to those baseballs like it was a prized possession. They didn't realize it was worthless to them, because who knows who these 8 or 9 kids were that they played with that one day. And then as I began to coach, instead of giving the customary trophy, I used to, with the other coaches, decide, okay, which of the 16 games or so that we played, which was their best game. And so I gave part of a trophy was an autographed baseball with all the coaches' names on it, with all the players' names on it. And then it was game 12 and would give the stats of that particular game. So the trophies that I gave to my players ended up being autographed baseballs. That's how it all got started. Right. And then as I stopped coaching, then I started realizing, I think I love the autographs too of players. And that's when I began to collect autographed baseballs. I would go back as far as, the mid-90s. So that's how the collection got started. And then I started going to garage sales, estate sales, finding balls online, bumping into people. In any autographed baseball, I would buy $1, $2, $10. And then I would find out who it was. And I had this kind of art of trying to decipher letters and autographs, and then I would match those autographs up online, and that's how the collection got started. And then as it grew and grew and grew and grew, I started getting baseballs that I would find at sales or online. They'd be of players that I didn't know about, haven't heard about. So I would take that ball and I would find out who it was and where they started, particularly if they played high school baseball and went straight from high school to college, because that's a special player, the player who can kind of go with raw talent. And so then I started contacting their coaches and saying, listen, I've got this baseball of a kid that you coached in 1999, and they went straight to the Red Sox. And I want you to have this ball. You can put it on your desk, put it in your school, a trophy case, put it in your trophy case, because I know you coached him and you meant something to him, and I'm sure this ball means more to you than me. So I would get their email address. I'd say, Coach, I got this baseball. I want to send it to you. Make sure this is the right address. And they would always say, well, how much? And I'd say, it's free, man. I just want to send it to you. It's my gift. And if you have an extra T-shirt, team hat, team jersey, send it to me and I'll wear it. And so I have mailed baseballs to coaches on the West Coast, as far as Washington State, as far as southern part of Louisiana, Florida, and even New York City. So I've sent baseballs to coaches all over the country of players that I don't know, never really made it big, but their coaches, were proud of what they did in high school and how they contribute to their pro career.
It must be challenging to read some of those autographs and not know how they learned to spell their names. Sometimes I've seen that.
Yeah. I mean, side note, I bought a ball at a card show the other day, and it was in a box for just odds and balls that the guy didn't know who they had, $10. And I picked up one, and I thought, well, this is a cool autograph. I paid $10 for it, but I couldn't figure out who it was, Skip. And so I did that. I literally turned it over, and it made sense to me. It was Sammy Sosa.
Wow.
So I went to the guy and said, hey, dude, I paid you what it's worth. I mean, you told me $10, but let me show you who you had. And I showed him the ball upside down. It was Sammy Sosa. And of course, he went berserk. Like, I can't believe I sold you that for $10. I said, well, you did, and I'm going to enjoy it. In fact, it's sitting up there on my display case behind me. That's one of the things that I have here at this office.
One time a fella called me. I don't collect like I used to, but I had a friend out in Green Hills who would go to sales and things, and he knew what I liked. Nashville Vols programs, New York Yankees at the time. I don't collect Yankees much anymore. But he called me one time and he said, hey, I've got this box of stuff. You want to come out and take a look at it? And I said, yeah. And I never did dicker with him. I always said, you tell me what it's worth. If I want it, I'll pay. If I don't want it, I'm not going to pick and choose and pick things out of a box. So I got there and there was a Joe DiMaggio mini bat. There were 4 or 5 things like that, a couple of Yankees programs, a Nashville Vols program. And I said, okay, I'll take it. He asked, I said, what do you want for it? He told me. I put it in my truck, took it home, put it in my room that night, looked at it the next day, and down at the bottom was an autographed baseball by Yogi Berra, and it said he had inscribed it with, it ain't over till it's over. So I called my fellow back, and I said, I just want you to know, if you didn't want this to be included, I'm an honest guy, I'll bring this back to you. And he said, no, I gave you a price. I didn't know it was in there, but if you bought what was in the box, it's yours. I still have that. So sometimes we run across a treasure like that. Now, tell the story about the Sandy Koufax ball that you told.
Yeah, recently, I don't want to tell you, I bought a huge collection from a guy who just needs some cash. He didn't really know what he had, and we were loading. Literally, I picked it up. I met him at a Dollar General store on the back roads of Las Casas, Tennessee. Yeah. It was kind of dicey to begin with, but we were looking through the last bin, and he picked up this ball, and he turned it and kind of looked at it. He goes, now, was Sandy Koufax very good? And I chuckled all the way home because I wasn't trying to rip him off because, he said, whatever's in here you can have. But I've run across several treasures like that people don't know what they have, or they know what they have and it doesn't mean anything to them. Yeah. A while back, I bought even though I'm a Reds fan, I bought a Vin Scully ball that he signed at a spring practice years ago. And a couple years ago, I tried to sell it to a guy who was a huge Dodgers fan. And even though I'm a huge Vin Scully fan, I was willing to sell it to him for what I had in it. And at the point, I think it was $279 or something like that. And the guy said, man, that's just too much money. Well, I looked at the ball online the other night. It's well over $1,000 now. Now, I'm not looking to sell it. I'm not a dealer. I don't make money off of this. I just thoroughly enjoy the find, the giving away. Every year that my grandson plays baseball, I ask his coaches about their favorite player growing up. And whoever they tell me, if I don't have it in my collection, I'll get it for them. And so his coaches always get their favorite baseball player autographed baseball for coaching my grandson.
Oh.
Now, last year was pretty costly because of the 4 coaches. 2 were big McGuire fans. One was a junior fan, a Griffey Jr., and one was a Pujols fan. Good Lord.
My word.
By the end of the season, I almost stopped giving that tradition away because I was thinking, wow. But I love my grandson that much. Now, along that line, a couple of years ago, he played for the A's out in Smyrna, and his coaches wanted Reggie Jackson, a couple Sonny Grays, and it was easy. But I always give him a ball based on the team he plays for as a little leaguer.
Yeah.
And all I had in my collection that year with the A's that he would anywhere get close to was a Todd Van Poppel ball. Yeah. Well, I gave it to him, and ironically, this box I bought in Chattanooga last weekend had a Todd Van Poppel ball when he played for AAA down in Georgia. And so I did some research on it, looked at it, and found a thing on Baseball Almanac or something that said he was going to be the first-round draft pick in the college draft, and the Braves were going to pick him. And he said, I will explicitly never play for the Braves.
Yeah.
So the Braves said a few words like, get out of here. Okay, whatever. And they ended up drafting that year a player that turned out pretty good, Chipper Jones.
Of course.
So
Of course.
it's the thing about anytime you get involved with baseball, you find out one interesting story about after another that makes it fun just to know that you knew a little bit about that player or have their baseballs.
Oh, yeah. No, that's good. I know, well, when I told John Mitchell at our meeting the other night that I was going to meet Doc Gooden, he said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you have any stories for me?" And he said, "Well, I called him Dog." That's all he told me. So I went up to him before this meeting the other night. We were having a little meal, and before Gooden got up to speak, and I said, "Hey, one of your teammates in Nashville wanted to tell you hello." And he said, "Nashville, they got good ribs there, don't they?" I said, "Well, I think you're thinking of Memphis. We have hot chicken." And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "John Mitchell," he said, "to call you Dog." And he said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "I love John Mitchell. Is he still doing auctions?" Because he remembered being our speaker. And John Mitchell did that auction for us, which he does a great job every year in raising money for us. Do you have a favorite baseball, autographed baseball yourself?
Yeah, this is going to sound odd because I've got high, I've got nice names. Got Ted Williams, Al Lopez. I'll get to my favorites are all Reds, but
Right.
my favorite all-time ball is probably the Bird, Mark Fidrich.
Oh, I bet.
And I've got two of his.
Wow.
And the other day, somebody's going to buy one of them. I said, I don't think so. I think I'm going to hang on to this. And I think it's because when I watched him, I was enamored. This was before I was even in psychology. I was enamored by the craziness of his antics. And of course, I've since, watched his story, this tragic story on TV. And
Yeah.
I always love Fidrich. And then it's funny. Oh, how long ago was it? I was at a yard sale and I found a coloring book, a Mark Fidrich, the Bird, Detroit Tigers coloring book. And I bought it for 10 cents.
Oh, my goodness.
And the person said, why do you want this coloring book? You're an old man. It's like, you got no idea. But Mark Fidrich was one of my favorite players.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
He's one of my treasured, even though I've got a lot of, Yankees players and players that balls would bring a lot of money. I enjoy that kind of find as much as anything. Anybody who played for the Reds, I have a special display cabinet case that has nothing but Reds memorabilia in it.
And tell the story about your wife opening the closet where you had some balls.
Yeah, we remodeled our house a while back, and I heard this screech from upstairs. And I went downstairs because it was one of those demanding screeches. And she said, "What is this?" She'd opened up a closet she hadn't opened up in the boys' part of our house for years. She goes, "What is this?" And I said, "This is 550 autographed baseballs in alphabetical order."
You still have that there? It's not nailed shut.
Actually, my autograph collection has grown exponentially since then. So I've moved it into a different space in a cabinet now that is more secure and have more room. So I've in that closet now I have put other things like I've got a collection of baseballs that have Tony the Tiger logo on it, or Blimpie's sandwiches, or Disney World, or just kind of photo balls. And I have a couple hundred of those that are worthless, but they're just balls I pick up at sales, or when I visit someplace, I'll get one of those. A lot of those are balls that people give me because they think I want it, or it's the novelty of it.
What is it? What is it that gets us to collect? Because I'm like that too. My wife says baseball is my other woman. She never worries about me if I'm at a baseball event, for example. Not that she should. She should worry that I'm bringing something home that maybe I couldn't afford. And I love to go to those card shows and memorabilia shows and meetings. Even look through the silent auction items that we're selling at Old Timers. Lamar Bradley handles that. He does a marvelous job raising money for old timers for that. He takes great care in that, great pride in that, and he does a marvelous job. What is it, though? I mean, sometimes I've even gone as far as saying, you remember when the Nashville Sounds built their new ballpark, First Tennessee Park, now First Horizon Park, and I don't think the dirt is the same, but I go a little deep and I say there's some great baseball DNA in that dirt, in that location. And I think if you handle a baseball that you love, or a piece of memorabilia that you love, a pennant, a ball glove that's autographed, any kind of thing like that. There's some aura to that. How do you explain that?
Well, the older I get, the stronger I think it is that we all love nostalgia.
Yeah.
And we all like going back to a place that was more fun, less stress. Baseball can do that for me in a heartbeat. I literally touch baseballs probably 30 minutes a night just to as part of my winding down process. And I think we like to go backwards. I think we'd like to remember the way it used to be. In fact, Skip, if you were to look at my collection, I probably have one ball, maybe two, of anybody who's played since 2000. And the reason is I'm not as big a fan as today's players as I am vintage players and players that were fun when I was growing up. Because I think there's a different kind of player.
Right.
Uh,
I agree.
I remember the week before he got traded, I bought and I was in Atlanta, I bought a Freddie Freeman autograph baseball. And I thought it was my new investment. He was going to be a Brave for life. And
Oh, yeah.
the next week he became a Dodger. And all of a sudden that ball became worthless to me and anybody else because nobody cared about Freddie Freeman.
No, I get it.
And so I finally gave it away as a gift last year to somebody who liked Freddie Freeman. But for the most part, we collect things that kind of take us backwards.
Yeah.
And when I get a Sparky Anderson card or a book or a ball, or I've probably got more Pete Rose autographed baseballs than I need. When I get a George Foster baseball or Concepcion, any of those players, even a Vita Blue ball, anything back in the 70s era, just takes us back to a pretty fun place in life that we don't have these days.
Yeah, they played the game differently, didn't they, back in those days? And it was more of a pure game, I think, than it is today with, well, so many other things that the training is different. The concepts are different. The players seem to have a different attitude. Money has changed an awful lot of that thing. Those things, I can remember going to an Atlanta Braves game against the Cubs, getting there early so we could watch, taking a little infield before the game. They don't do that anymore. And it just takes a little bit something away from the game.
I remember that this would have been the 80s, late 80s. I took a group of students from my church to Kansas City. We went to a Kansas City game. And one of the sponsors of our trip had a friend who was an insurance agent there in Kansas City. And we ended up getting 4 tickets on top of the dugout. And he goes, "Do you know any Kansas City Royals?" And that's when Brett played, when Bo Jackson played. And I said, "Well, I know those two guys just because I've watched." He goes, "But do you know them?" I said, "No." But I said, "Watch this." And the history of George Brett is George Brett does not do autographs.
Right.
And this is before I was even into autographs, but I yelled to George as he was taking infield practice, "Hey, George." He ran over to the dugout. He thought he knew me.
Yeah.
Well, we had a 10 or 15-minute conversation.
Wow.
And at the end of the conversation, he said, "Hey, you got your ticket stubs?" I handed him all 4 ticket stubs. He autographed all 4 of them.
No kidding.
My friend said, how did you know George Brett? I said, "I didn't. I just called him over here." And so that idea of you would never get that much anymore. The guy who thinks he knows you or the guy who wants to take time to spend time with you on the field.
Right.
You just don't have many athletes like that much anymore.
I know at this event I was in at Friday night, there were a couple of ladies there who are do counseling, I think similar to what you do, at Walter State Community College. And they asked Doc Gooden that question. And he had just gone through his story about mental health. And he was encouraging people, if you know someone, to find a space and someone to be able to talk to them. And this lady said, "Would you be interested in talking to my class?" And he said, "Sure, I would. When we end tonight, I'll give you my phone number and you give me yours so I'll know that you're calling, and we'll set up something so that I can talk to them." And I think that's a different player from an era that is gone by. I'm not sure that happens too much these days. Maybe a player who's recently retired, but back in those days, and of course he had an excellent story. Gooden did, about using the good part of his life to tell a story and use what he went through to encourage others. What's on the horizon for you for baseballs? You have one that you're after that you don't have? You're looking for one?
No, I'm just constantly looking for whatever I did have a deal last week. I saw a ball for sale on Marketplace,
Yeah.
and every now and then you'll find somebody on Marketplace who doesn't really know what they have, or they've got it listed for an affordable, or you can tell they're needing cash. Well, I went and met a guy at a high dollar. I'm not going to mention his name, but a high dollar condominium place here in downtown Nashville.
Right.
And he said, "Hey, listen, man, I'm selling some autographed baseballs." And he said one of them's kind of a no-name coach for the Braves, and it was the pitching coach Lee Malzone.
Malzone, yeah.
And I said, "Well, yeah." He was selling it for $5.
Goodness.
Well, that coach doesn't sign many autographs because nobody cares about the pitching coach's autograph.
Right.
Well, then got farther. He said, "I've got some autographed baseballs of Kenny Rogers." Of course, my thought was, well, Kenny Rogers of the Rangers, perfect game. He goes, "No, I think this is of the country artist Kenny Rogers." I said, no, because and so I met him downtown, and I got some Kenny Rogers stuff for almost nothing because he was just cleaning his stuff.
No kidding.
And so I said, "So where did you get?" This is the amazing thing about the balls for me, Skip, is I'm more interested in the story than the autograph.
Of course.
He said, my uncle does some work with Kenny Rogers, and now it makes sense of why I've got autographed Kenny Rogers pictures in a baseball uniform. And so I took his Kenny Rogers stuff from him. He was just getting rid of it.
Yeah.
One of them was a newspaper the day after Rogers threw the perfect game, and he and Rodriguez are hugging each other, jumping up and down after the game. And I've got the autograph on a newspaper.
No kidding.
And a ball to go with it, and a couple spring practice balls. I walked away with, I don't mind telling you, Skip, I walked away with 7 baseballs that I've just described to you and a newspaper for $35.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't wake up last Friday wanting to get a Kenny Rogers autograph, but I couldn't pass it up.
Right.
Okay. So I don't know what my next find is. I had a situation where last year, I guess it was last year, when Aaron Judge broke the Yankees home run record to 62.
Right.
Immediately, I tried to purchase a Judge ball. Well, I'm not going to pay $1,000 for an Aaron Judge baseball. I mean,
nope.
I'm not even a fan of his. But I did buy, get this, the baseball of the pitcher who threw the home run.
Wow.
Tinoco or something like that. He's a no-name.
Yeah, right. He is.
But I bought his baseball for about $20, which sent me on a tear of, who threw the home run pitch to Hank Aaron?
Yeah.
Well, Jack Winningham. Who threw the pitch where Bonds broke that record? Right. Well, so then I just started getting pictures of people who threw home run pitches. I have recently bought a ball of the guy who threw Mickey Mantle's first home run.
Wow.
I mean,
who was that?
What's his name? Randy Gumpert.
Okay.
I mean,
say so.
he's a no-namer, but I got 2 of his baseballs in last year because I got on this tear of tracking down pitchers who are insignificant, no names, who threw first pitch to Mickey Mantle's first home run, or who threw Roger Maris's last home run.
Shoot, that's cool. I got lucky one time. I bought a box of Southern Association baseballs. Now, the Southern Association went out of business in 1961. These were balls that were brand new, but the tissue on them had kind of browned some of the spots, as the old baseballs did. And we had Harmon Killebrew. And after everybody was at our banquet, I think in 2010, I can't remember. And after the banquet, I handed him one of these baseballs, and I said, "Would you sign this for me?" And he said, "Sure, I will." So he had a crisp autograph. I'm not sure anybody has as crisp an autograph as Harmon Killebrew.
Right.
He signed that baseball, and he handed it back to me. I said, "I am so grateful, but did you notice what kind of baseball that was?" And he said, "What?" I said, "It's a Southern Association baseball." And he said, "Well, here, give it back to me." Now, I was pleased that he signed it, but he took it back and moved it down a little bit and wrote Chattanooga Lookouts, 1957, 58. Now, there are not any of those. He would have not done that in the Southern Association in 57 or 58. Right. So I've got a very unique baseball, which is very, very important to me, just because of the relationship that we had just for a few moments. Do you have any other similar situations like that? Like the
man, my mind just started Now, my mind just started racing of balls I've collected. One of my favorites recently was somebody came to, and they know I collect, everybody knows I collect baseballs. And
Right.
this guy brought a ball to my office. He goes, "Man, I have no idea who this is, but you're welcome to have it." And of course, it had the old, Nashville Sounds logo on it. And it was a Smitto.
Oh, wow.
It was
Yeah.
his autograph. I
Yeah.
said, "This is Smitto's, the owner of the Sounds from years ago." He goes, "Man, I didn't know who that was. It's been in my closet forever." And
Oh,
so, you know, a ball like that, I can just imagine Smitto in the stands signing a baseball and probably
I'm
having a
sure.
great conversation about something. So I've got balls like that. I got a ball a while back from a pool host when he first was with his rookie year when he was with the Cardinals, and it was a rainout a game, and the guy got the autograph in the tunnel underneath the stadium while they were waiting for a rainout, and it has even a note on when the ball was autographed. And
Wow.
who gets a ball like that? Because
Sure.
that rainout was only one day.
Yep.
So balls like that. One time, and Tom Bolton, a good friend of mine from high school that you mentioned earlier, he didn't sign a whole lot of autographed baseballs. He just wasn't in that. Nobody wanted Tom Bolton, so I found a Red Sox ball, team ball, that had Tommy's autograph on it. So I bought it. The guy said, "Well, ball's really worthless." I said, "Well, no, it's got exactly what I want." He goes, "Well, it doesn't have Wade Boggs' autograph on it." So that's fine. It's got Tom Bolton. He said, "Who's Tom Bolton?"
Oh, of course.
And I told him my history of Tom, which goes way back. And so that ball means a lot to me. It's a Red Sox
Sure.
ball with Tom Bolton's name on it. And then
Great guy.
a while back, I was in Murfreesboro buying from a guy that he and I trade a lot. He wants cards. I want baseballs. We were trading back and forth. He didn't know my history, but he's well connected to MTSU.
Yeah.
So I bought some balls from him, and then at the end, he said, "Hey, man, I found this ball in the closet, and I know you collect autographs, so I'm just going to give it to you. It's worthless." He pitched me a ball. I looked at it, and my eyes got huge. He goes, "Well, man, that's kind of a weird reaction to a worthless baseball." I said,
He didn't know
"Who
you
is
too
this?"
well.
He said, "It's autographed by Tom Bolton." "Who's Tom Bolton?" I just went nuts. I said, "First of all, it's the only home run I've ever hit in my life was against Tom Bolton, a good friend of mine in high school." And so, that ball is worth more to me than a lot of the other ones I mentioned, just because of high school connection, little league connections growing up, playing each other in middle school.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what I'm looking for next, but it'll be whatever it is. It's going to be fun to find.
All right. Now tell your home run story.
Home run story, playing Little League Baseball. The firm at bat, I got hit in the ribs, and I thought I was going to die. It was one of those pitches where I didn't know to go frontwards, backwards, whatever. Next time I got up at bat against the same guy, he was probably throwing 70 in junior high school, and nobody could hit him. So I swung on the first pitch with my eyes shut. I ran to first base, and my coach said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Coach, I got a hit." He goes, "Yeah, you hit a home run. You need to run all the bases." And so when I touched home plate, the pitcher that I referred to said, "Maybe next time you ought to shut your eyes again." And that's my only home run I've ever hit in my life. Was my eyes were shut.
I love that story. I love that story.
So every time I see Tom Bolton, he just drops his head and he goes, "How many?" I said, 215. And I have more baseball. He said, "You have more baseball cards than my mother has."
Isn't that something?
So, I think that's part of the nostalgia thing. It takes us back to a fun part of our life.
Yeah.
And, whether we've hit against somebody or watched somebody be successful or just see somebody love the game.
I love the way that you framed that. I think that's great. I think you're exactly right. Shifting gears a little bit, you and I are members of the Old Timers, Nashville Old Timers Baseball Association. You've been a great member in a short period of time, now president for a 2-year term. I think your influence for the next 2 years is going to be outstanding, and it has been for the last 2 years as vice president. Do you have any thoughts about Old Timers, what that means to you, what you look forward to for the next couple of years and beyond even?
Well, this is going to sound like I'm crazy, but I honestly believe I will keep it up. And every day I'm going to talk about baseball with somebody. It might be somebody I meet at a restaurant. It might be somebody I'm in an Uber. It might be a client. And I don't mean it consumes my life, but I think baseball is the commonality a lot of people have that brings about hope, peace, contentment. And so I do talk about it. I mean, even if it's 1 minute a day, and my hope and prayer is, and I don't mean that spiritually speaking, but my hope and prayer for my life is that I will continue to find enjoyment, contentment, and provide the same thing in other people by talking about something as simple as a game. Meetings I attend, banquets I attend, times I get to speak, it's amazing the number of people who have the same sentiment that something as nostalgic as baseball brings them back to a happy place, a good place, a place of contentment. And I look to do that for the Old Timers Association. I do that for the whole Middle Tennessee community as we look about what baseball has meant to us over the last 50 to 80 years.
Yeah.
And I was riding an Uber the other day. I was going to get a rent-a-car. The Uber driver says, "Man, what do you do for fun?" I said, "Well, I collect baseball stuff." And we started talking. Well, his son was a graduating senior from a school here in Middle Tennessee. And we began to talk. He says, what does the Old Timers Association do? I said, well, we're about scholarships and blah, blah, blah. And keeping the idea of baseball floating around Middle Tennessee. He goes, man, I wish I'd have known you a year ago, because my son, who was voted as an 11-year-old as Rutherford County's Athlete of the Year, now 6 years later is probably going to drop out of playing baseball, even though he's got several college offers, just because he's just lost interest in life.
Yeah.
He said, man, I wish I'd have talked to you a year ago to find out about the scholarships you guys give out, the fund that you guys keep going. He says, because I think as a dad, I could have benefited from encouraging my son, hey, here's a scholarship that you're going to apply for just because you love playing baseball, not that you're going to play in college. And so I want to see our organization be influential in a positive sense for people across Middle Tennessee.
Wow, I think that's great. Yeah, you're going to be a great president for 2 years. You just rattled off the dreams of so many. I think that's just terrific. Once again, my caps. I could take my cap off to you 20 times in this conversation, because I think that's you're a real testament to the sport. I think also your faith it shows very well, and I'm grateful to you for that. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this. I heard you tell similar things at our last meeting a couple of days ago, but this one kind of expands that, and I'm grateful, and I hope we can do it again. It's great to get to know.
I'm going to tell you, I'll end with this. One time I was asked, and it was probably 15 years ago, who's your favorite player? And that was easy for me to respond, Pete Rose.
Yeah.
And he said, how could you, a person of your intelligence, a person who does what you do for a living, have a thug for a hero?
Oh, my goodness.
I said, well, here's the deal. He's always going to be a baseball hero to me.
Yeah.
I don't care what he did, what he's accused of. I do care about whether or not he gets, into the Hall of Fame. But the guy said to me something that really changed my collection around. He says, you really ought to think about doing something besides just collecting Pete Rose stuff. If you're going to be passionate about baseball, maybe you expand it a little bit and think about something that's a little bit more positive than just collecting Pete Rose memorabilia. So that's when I started ramping up the kind of baseballs I collect, the number of baseballs I collect, the players I collect. It also started me in collecting, because of my two sons who both were very good at baseball. I collect brothers' cards who both played professional baseball, fathers and son combinations, grandfathers, father-son combinations. That's one thing we haven't talked about today, but that's a collection I value as well, because the family connections, particularly brothers and father-son combinations. That's people don't realize there are over 1,000 father-son brothers combinations since the 1900s.
Right.
And so there's a strong familial tie to all this as well.
Yeah.
I just want, and I just talked to one of my sons today about this. I just want baseball to be a conversation that reminds us of fun.
Yep.
I've coached hundreds of games. I've lost some tough games. I've won some tough games. But more than anything, I just enjoy what being at a game means Last spring, I stopped by a Little League game, which I frequently do. I didn't know who was playing, but I was standing on the fence at a local field, and the team that was at bat was up 18-1. And the coach on third called us, bases were loaded. He called a suicide squeeze. Now they're up 18-1.
Oh.
And as soon as he called that, I yelled out from the third base fence, "Come on, coach." The umpire called timeout. He walked over to the fence where I was standing, and it was Patrick, who used to call games at Una when I coached.
Yeah.
He said, "Coach, that I knew that was you. It sounded just like your." Hang on a minute. He called the coach over to the fence, and he said, "Coach, I want you to listen to this coach, who I've known for years. And Coach Tony, I want you to tell him what just happened that was wrong." I said, "Coach, when you're up 18-1, clearly you're killing the other team. You don't call a suicide squeeze." He goes, "Well, I was just trying." I said, "I don't know. I don't care what you were trying to do. That's out of line. It's why people get turned off from baseball." And umpire Patrick said to the coach, "Did you hear what Coach Tony just said?" He goes, "Yes, sir, I did." And he said, "Then listen to me. You're out of here."
Oh, my
And he threw him out of the park. And that's the love of the game I have. Not that I need to be right, or not that I need to be pointed out, but that the game teaches lessons to boys and to parents.
Yeah. And
then that didn't teach a kid anything. When you're up 18-1, you call suicide squeeze. So as long as we can keep having fun, even when you're losing, I want to be a part of that. And today I went and bought my grandson a used glove because it's already broken in. Yeah. Play it in sports. I just delivered it to him. He's ready for his first practice as an 11-year-old Tuesday night. So as long as we can do stuff like that, I think that'll keep us going.
Well, Tony, you said it very well at our meeting when you said you wanted to take away some of the unfun things about old timers and return the fun part back to it. I think not that things have been bad, but I think it could certainly be better, and we can get out of our little rut. And I think you're the guy to make that happen. So I congratulate you for that. I am grateful that you would talk to me tonight. I want to do it again because there's so much more about you I'd like to know. And once again, thank you so much for being a part of this. I'm truly, truly grateful, and God bless you for all you do.
Thanks, Skip. I look forward to telling more stories.